And I just want y'all to help me thank all of them for helping to do this. Thank you. This is the first time I've got everybody to come up here like this, and sometimes we are up here and you don't really get to see how many people have come together for the last 3 years to do this, and it's really incredible because it takes a whole lot of people. And when we first started this in 2013, right after I got into office, I reached out to Sheriff Piper, and he just got into office, and I reached out to most of these that were up here, the school board and Judge Bagley and the people that, and it has grown, and said we need to do something. There's a lot of people that are suffering from addiction, and there's a lot of kids and young adults that are dying, and we're not doing much about it. I had friends that were up here that they didn't know where to turn, and there was just not a lot going on, and a lot of parents, it seemed like kids knew a lot. Kids were informed, but a lot of parents were not. And we tried to come together as a community and talk about it. And we tried to reach out and talk to each other about it, and tried to start having these summits. And this is our fifth one? Fourth one, and we're already talking about doing one in the spring. And I just appreciate, because these would be not worth a whole bunch if you didn't come to them. And so we really are appreciative that on a cold, rainy night that you have come out and to hear about it and to support it, and we really appreciate it. Thank you so much, and thank all of you for being here tonight. When we first started doing this, we looked at where do we go from here? You know, we started it and we wanted to do the summits, but we knew we couldn't just do that it wasn't just enough to have the summits, that it needed to grow, that it needed to be a place, that it wasn't just enough just to have that we needed to be more, we needed to be a resource, and we needed to be somewhere that parents could go to in the community, that we could be a source for information, you know, that we could raise awareness about drugs in the community, but we could be a resource and not a place that would be a place that they would be fearful of getting their kids in trouble. You know, a place that they could turn to, that they could learn more about how they could help their child, and they could become more aware of what was going on in their child's life. And so we wanted to start a awareness council that would be something that would meet all the time, that we could become more aware of what was going on ourselves in the community, and we could get information out in the community, but a place that they could go to, that a source of information. So we wanted to set up a resource center. Well, we knew we needed to have money to do that. Everything comes down to money. And we looked at how could we get grants and do that. Some of you know when there were grant opportunities out there. Well, we discovered that there was already a council existed in our county. They were already set up, but they were not legal. And so we went to our sheriff, and we had an investigation that was discovered that it was an illegal one. They were already getting federal money and had been getting it for 11 years. And so after a very good investigation, they were arrested, and good job. And they did receive from the federal government another $125,000 after they were told about it, and they no longer get the grant. And luckily this year we were given a grant thanks to Ruth Good of United Way. Yes, help me thank Ruth of United Way. And Nancy Smallwood from GMR I never say it right, anyway, Nancy helped us too. The county also assisted in that, and we were awarded the SAMHSA grant, and so our county is the recipient now. We do officially have a Forsyth County Drug Awareness Council. We are going to be able to hire a position. We are now writing that job qualification, so we are very, very happy that we will be able to hire a position. We will be able to have our own parent resource center in the future where parents will be able to go and look and be able to have a place for a resource, and hopefully in the near future we will be able to have that for parents and for children, and I'm so thankful. I feel like we have done something. This group of people have been able to come together and do something that we as a county have needed for quite some time, and I'm just so thankful. I feel like that it is such a blessing, and I'm just so grateful for everybody that's been involved in it. And y'all help me thank everybody and thank the Lord. I also want to thank the people that are here tonight. I see our chairman, Pete Amos, our commissioners have all been very supportive of this effort. I have taken a lot of time working on this, and our county's been supportive, and they're going to help us find a location. Judge Jackson is wanting us to be up there near juvenile court, and it's going to be an in-kind contribution, so I'm very happy with that. Thank you for being here, Pete. Do we have any other commissioners here tonight? They're in trouble. They're not supportive. Y'all be sure to know that. We have Judge Bagley here with us, and I saw Judge McClellan. Is there any other judges? I saw our district attorney, Penny Penn, back there. Do we have any other judges? Any other district attorneys? I think the juvenile. Thank you for being here. Is there any? I knew there's some school board members here. Kristen Morrissey. Is there any other school board members? Tom Cleveland. Tom's part of our group. Did I miss anybody else? Michael Williams. Senator Michael Williams is back there. And Sherry Gilligan, our new representative. I saw Sherry. Wave to me, Sherry. Sherry's back there. Thank you so much for being here, Sherry. Is there anybody else? Did I miss any other? Thank you so much. This is it takes all of us working together. This is a big issue, and it takes us all working together. Did I miss anybody else? I want to encourage all of you. We didn't do any surveys when we end, but we have a Facebook page, Forsyth County Drug Awareness Council, and we also are going to be updating our website. If y'all will like it on Facebook, and we are going to do some surveys and ask some questions as far as when we set up the resource center, things that you might like to see there and things that you might want to do, would like to have there. And we'd really like to have input. Also, we have tried to do some billboards and different things. We had a situation that we tried to assign, and I want to thank Connor Poe and the billboard companies. They have been really helpful to us as far as trying to get our message out, because we have not had any fundraisers and we've not had any money. And they have been very supportive of helping us get our message out. There is, over there tonight, we were talking about the 911 law, and they've got cards over there, and the message that they are trying to promote is a very, very good one about friends not letting friends die. And we have had several situations in Forsyth County of deaths that have occurred that did not have to occur. We had a message, we did a billboard. Edward Bailey, No Longer Bound, has helped us get our message out so much. They've done our posters and a lot of things for us, and we appreciate it so much, Edward. But we did billboards about friends not letting friends die, and we have the Samaritan law that has, you don't get in trouble if you take a friend to get help. And we had a young man, Josh Gordon, that died last year in December, and he was one of my kids at church camp, that actually sat in our class that I got to teach. And he could have survived, you know, if his friends had cared and got him to help. And they didn't, and he didn't. And, you know, it was as easy as that. I mean, he could have survived. And that happens all the time. And it's as simple as just taking him to the ER. And now, I mean, this gentleman over here that lost his daughter, the same thing could have happened. I mean, if a friend will just take the time to take their child, take their friend, and you know, you say that's their friend, but take their friend to the ER and just get them help. And it's as simple as that. And a lot of times they don't get help because the person's afraid of getting them in trouble, that they'll get in trouble. And now the law protects that. And so it's as simple as that. It's getting that message out and getting that person, you know, the help that they need. And we've just got to get that message out that now the law will protect. So I will let Sheriff Piper come and let him talk about the law.
Cindy wanted me to specifically talk about some of the programs that we offer at the Sheriff's Office that are aimed towards mainly youth, drug and alcohol use. It'll take about 35 minutes to go through all these if you just stick with me. It'll be worth it. Somebody laughing, that's a joke. It's supposed to be a joke. It'll take 35 minutes and I can go through every program. I did hear some groaning though. I would like to say a couple words in general about programs though. If I was to go around and ask everybody in the room what they thought the purpose of a program was that any government agency or private agency could put on, I'd probably get about as many answers as there are folks in the room. But to me, there's really only one reason to offer any programs, and that's to accomplish a purpose. There's all the reasons that anybody probably give me would be good reasons, but we're wasting time, money, and effort, frankly, if we're just doing a bunch of programs to be doing programs. These drug summits, they were Commissioner Mills' idea. I was a little reluctant at first, but most of the programs that we're running right now actually started because of groups like this, the public's interest in them. The most notable ones, the most specific ones that most of you all may have heard of, we're running a CHAMPS program. Does anybody know what that is? We're running in the school. It's 5th grade, of course the school folks know it. We couldn't run it without the cooperation and permission of the school board. But it's aimed at 5th graders, and it's a drug and alcohol education and prevention. The reason it's aimed at 5th graders is because studies are showing that that's 4th and 5th grade is really the first contact, the first use in a lot of cases of drugs and alcohol in our kids. So we're aimed at that, and the TIP program, the Teen Interception Program. This one was started by Paige. Oh yeah, Paige. Paige started this one. That was actually her. It's a calling, I guess I'd have to call it. It's for youth that may be starting to get in trouble with drugs and alcohol, specifically for alcohol. And some of them are there because their parents have brought them there. Some of them are there because the courts are ordered them there. That's also an education process. It's one of the programs we offer. I'm not going to stand here and tell you all the wonderful things we're doing because actually the community is the one that's doing these. We're going to have to expand them because the response and the participation we're getting is so overwhelming. But that's a testament to the community we live in. This many people are here on a rainy, cold night like this because you're interested, you're aware that there's a problem in the community, which is the other big thing, is admitting that there's a problem. That's the hard thing for us to do a lot of times. It's very hard for elected officials and politicians to say we have a problem in our community. We like to say there's problems other places. We like to say Atlanta's got a problem, but we have a problem too. Our kids use drugs, our kids get in trouble with alcohol. Not all of them, but we have to admit it. If we don't admit it, if we don't recognize the problem, then we're not doing anything about it. It's getting worse. The same process families go through with when they're having to deal with problems. The grant that Cindy was talking about, I'm a little surprised that she took that on. But I pointed out to her that the last guy that did that went to jail. But, she's willing to take that chance, so we're going to work with her. But the most exciting thing to me about that grant is it's going to do a lot of things, but it's what I'm envisioning, what I'm seeing, what's going to come of it is a clearinghouse kind of thing. Right now, if you were to come to any government official or anybody and ask them, say, listen, I have this problem, where do I go? They may be able to give you an answer, they may not be able to give you an answer. We have a lot of resources right now, but we don't have a coherent, organized way of getting the folks that need the specific help to the specific place. And that's what this is going to turn out to be. It's going to be a wonderful thing. Thanks for sticking with us, working with all of it. The deputies you see standing around, the ones in back, are all school resource officers. Feel free to grab them, ask them any questions you want. They truly enjoy their jobs. None of them are working in the schools because they're forced to. They didn't get in trouble, so we told them we got to go spend the whole day with kids. They actually volunteer to do these jobs, and we don't take that lightly. We actually try to not let them have the jobs, and we make them work for it. They do psychiatric evaluations specifically aimed at what they're doing, and they're good at it, and they enjoy it. Talk to them on the way out. If you have any questions, we'll be glad to handle it. Most of these folks are training folks, and they work in our operations division. Very knowledgeable. Be glad to help you with anything, any questions you have about if you think maybe your kids are experimenting with something, they can maybe give you some tips on how to figure that out. If any of y'all have anything to write with, let me give you my cell phone number. It is, my cell phone number, 40,000 people have this, don't feel special. 678-315-5615. It really is my number, and I'll call you back if you need anything. Let me know if there's anything I can help you with. Oh yeah, Narcan. The overdoses, like I said earlier, we're not immune to the problems other communities have. We have folks that overdose. Like heroin, of course, is one of the easier drugs to overdose on, opiates and heroin. We've already got it, we bought it, the Narcan. Does everybody know what Narcan is? Narcan counteracts the effects of heroin overdose and opiate overdose. It doesn't do it permanently. You have to get them to the hospital as quickly as you can afterwards, because all it does is arrest it right there, but there's still enough in their system to kill it. Once that wears off, it'll get them. But all we're waiting on right now, and I understand they should be here by the middle of the week, is the injectors. The type of injectors we're going to be using are the nasal injectors. Safer, easier to use. And there was a nationwide shortage of them, believe it or not, which is why we got the drug before we got the injectors. We've got a couple of pharmacists working with us to actually compound them and get the injectors working. But the holdup was actually the equipment to administer the medication. Nationwide shortage, we had a wait line to get them. So I'll tell you that it's a national problem. It's not just here. As a community, I hope you feel good about this, as a community, Forsyth County should feel very good about itself. If imitation is the highest form of flattery, people all over the state are copying Forsyth County. When y'all started this, the drug summits, now we've got the Attorney General running around doing the same thing, doing summits on heroin. They weren't doing that before. So even those of you that haven't been touched by a particular problem of drug addiction or alcohol addiction, what you're doing up here is noticed, and it does good. It does good for folks in other parts of the state. Thank you very much for caring, and thank you for going forward. This is not a quick fix. None of these are quick fix programs where we can do one program and we can all come here and feel good one night and the problem's solved. It's a long-term process, It's a long-term goal, but we'll see the fruits of it in years down the road. We can't just ignore the problem. We're not gonna just ignore the problem. We're gonna admit we have a problem. We're gonna deal with it. With that said, I'm anxious to hear our speaker, and I didn't take 35 minutes to go through every program. Thank you very much.
It is my distinct privilege to introduce our speaker this evening to you. Dr. Merrill Norton is our speaker this evening, and I first got acquainted with Dr. Norton right after I started our drug court in Forsyth County about 11 years ago. I was a new drug court judge. I didn't know anything about drug court. I didn't know anything about anything about drugs or how they affect the brain. And I sat through Dr. Norton's class on hijacking the brain, and it really illuminated me as a new drug court judge as to why an addict just can't stop and put it down. I really had no working knowledge of how an addict's brain works. And so this was he really explains it to where even a lawyer or judge can understand it who's not trained in the science of addiction. And that's what I needed. We in the legal field who work these cases, who have a drug court, who have an accountability court, we need to be able to know all the effects that drugs have on the brain, and to be able to effectively run our programs. And so all this training is so important for us, and I think you'll find it very illuminating. Dr. Norton is a clinical associate professor at the University of Georgia College of Pharmacy, with his specialty areas to include psychopharmacology and addiction pharmacy. He has also been a faculty member of the Fairleigh Dickinson University Postdoctoral Training Program in the Masters of Psychopharmacology, Allied and International University of San Francisco College of Psychology, University of Georgia School of Continuing Education, and Berry College in the areas of psychopharmacology and addiction pharmacy. His area of specialty in addiction pharmacy is the management of chronic pain in the addicted patient. Dr. Norton is the 2009 recipient of the Georgia School of Addiction Studies Excellence in Addiction Treatment Individual Achievement Award for his unselfish dedication to the treatment of addicted families, not only in the state of Georgia, but nationally. Dr. Norton was recognized by the GSAS Board of Directors for the ongoing development of undergraduate and graduate curriculum and drug research in the area of addiction pharmacy. His book, The Pharmacology of Psychoactive Chemical Use, Abuse, Independence, and his DVD series, The Hijacking of the Brain, have been used to train thousands of mental health professionals nationally. They have become the standards of teaching excellence in the addiction treatment profession. His new book, The Pharmacology of Substance Use Disorders, will be released this year. Let's give a warm Forsyth County welcome to Dr. Norton.
Thank you. How y'all doing? Well, I hope I'm only going to take 15 minutes to explain this, because I started early this morning, and we had some patients at the clinic that wanted me to explain to them what I'm going to try to explain to y'all. What had happened to them and how they became addicted. And then I moved from there to back to campus to the university, and I had most of the juvenile court judges. In fact, I had one of your juvenile court judges as a student this afternoon, along with my students. But I want y'all to recognize someone who is extremely important and is responsible primarily, directly, for getting me here. And she's sitting in the back of the room. Carson, would you raise your hand? Carson is my fourth-year student. She will graduate in May with her doctorate in pharmacy, and she's my chauffeur. She was able to get me from Athens, which I left about 4:45, and got me here on time. So I want y'all to give her a warm. I owe her dinner. So anyway, well, let me talk about kind of the new stuff. I am really taken back and impressed, and it's hard to impress me these years. I've been doing prevention work and addiction work for 30 years. Became an international consultant, traveled the world, and have talked to many audiences about the need to do exactly what y'all are going to do here. I'm excited about your granting process. I'm excited about your resource officers. I'm excited about your curriculum in school. And I'm going to tell you why that's so important. Hopefully you will understand why it's so important and why y'all need to all dedicate your efforts to the prevention side of this drastically changing environment as we look at addiction in our country today. I've just left Denver, Colorado 2 weeks ago. I have had a request of the state of Colorado to go visit their legal marijuana dispensaries, both on the personal side and on the medical side, and I will simply tell you it is an extremely scary circumstance that we're fixing to face. As the sheriff said so adequately, the heroin epidemic is taking lives every day. I'm glad to hear the Narcan, and I'm sorry that you don't have your injectors yet, but I'm excited about they're on their way. Because the volume, it's simply the volume of demand for that particular drug and the numbers of people that are using the new heroin that's coming out of Afghanistan, which is at the highest potency we've ever seen. So we've got to do better and we've got to do more. And I'm glad that y'all are here. And the reason I came, even though I'm very tired and I have had a very busy day, and actually a very busy 10 weeks, is because I wanted to support you. I want you to understand that I'm at the university, and one of the things I'm doing at the university is training students such as Carson and the next generation of pharmacists, the next generation of physicians, the next generation of psychologists to understand what I'm going to teach y'all tonight. Because if we don't have that level of education, then when you have a loved one that has addiction and they get in recovery, then they go to a physician unannounced to them and really unintentioned, the physician may give them something that they can't take and it can create a relapse. So that's why I'm here. I want to talk to you all a little bit about this, what we call the pain of pleasure. And what I need to tell you is addiction and what we call the anti-reward system, and it's an important process. And I want to see if this is working. Click, click. There we go. So I'm going to talk a little bit about neuroscience and pharmacology and not try to overwhelm you, but I don't apologize for the science. See, if we had done our job correctly 10 years ago, I wouldn't be having to give this talk. You would know what I'm fixing to tell you. But I'm still doing it. I've been doing it for 30 years, and I'm hoping that we'll get a curriculum through the schools, not only in the adult and adolescent education, but in the adult education, so y'all will understand what addiction is instead of guessing at what it is. And so we're going to talk about that. All right, so let's see. Click, 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 click. Click, click. Click, click. Oh, there. All right. Well, I know this clicker is going to be a thing of mine, so I don't have a relationship with it. I will tell you the very first thing. It's a very complicated disease. I have studied it for 25 years and still don't fully understand addiction. It changes brain chemistry. It changes brain pathways. It changes brain volume. It is an extremely destructive process, and it's biological. You know, it's got biological components. That's why you want to use Narcan to offset a possible overdose, because there's a mechanism inside of the central nervous system that addiction creates. And one of the mechanisms it creates is compulsivity. In other words, it makes people do things very compulsively. They drug take, and then they self-destruct, and they do other things. And so, you know, a lot of people tell me and ask me all the time, why don't I just detox somebody and send them on their way? Well, I wish I could. I wish I could simply go through a detox, and I'm expert in detoxification. But the thing about it is, if you detox a person, I don't care if it's heroin or cocaine or alcohol or whatever, you take away the drug and you get them stable and they feel better, guess what? You let them walk out the door, they still have what we call the sociological and psychological components of the disease, and they're preoccupied with the drug. that drug becomes their most important thing in their life. And they can't live without it, or at least the brain believes they can't live without it. So it's very, very complicated, and so treatment is required in the majority of these cases. And so as we do that, we'll see. All right. Click, 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 click. Okay. So here we have the big break. This is the world famous meth gal. This is when she started using meth, and when meth was such a popular situation. She started out, she looked pretty good right there, and then all of a sudden, looking here, 7 years later, this is what she looks like. Because methamphetamine wipes out central nervous system tissue. It wipes out the brain. It wipes out function in the brain. It destroys it. And so that's what we see. We see this situation here. Now, this woman is in her early 30s when she started, and this is in her late 30s when she ends up in this type of situation. And the thing about it is, unless she gets some sort of intervention, guess what? As I just told the judges, not more than a couple of hours ago, the average addict will die about 22 years before their time. Heroin addicts will die 35 years before their time. And cannabis addicts, we're not sure yet. But I will tell you, a lot of people think marijuana is a safe drug, and it's one of those things that it's okay, and now that it's legal, everybody knows. Let me tell you something. 11% of people who use marijuana will become addicted to it. That's higher than alcohol. And what I will show you is a couple brain scans in a minute having to do with marijuana, because it is, indeed, it's going to be a problem as we go through this. Now, I won't go into this because you can't read it. I can't read it very well myself. But I like to throw a little science up here. Simply put, you have two parts of the brain. You have a reward brain. Woo! 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 Didn't that feel good? Yeah. Must be that water. Something's in the water they gave you. But you feel real good, and that's the reward brain. And then we have what we call an anti-reward brain, which is, most people don't know. It's the pain brain. Because your central nervous system operates out of two systems. It operates out of reward or pain. Pleasure, pain. Pleasure, pain. Accelerator, brake. Accelerator, brake. And what the central nervous system tries to do is keep you in the middle. So if I can keep y'all from not being overly excited right now, or too depressed right now, you will learn something, maybe. Maybe. Of course, looking at the average age in the room, y'all are definitely past your peak learning curve, so I'll be gentle. I'll be gentle. But the thing that happens, you have this great chemistry. You have on the pleasure side, you have a dopamine-based brain, and it's tied to the endorphins. So you have pleasure, you have euphoria, and most of your pleasure, because it's tied to the endorphins, is painless. That's why we like it. There's no pain when it comes to pleasure. But on the other side, you've got two other chemicals. One's called glutamate, one's called GABA, and they're the pain managers. Now, that's what I do for a living. I manage chronic pain in patients who have become addicted. I've been doing that for 20 plus years. And that's one of the reasons they've asked me to come to the university, is because that expertise is not well known, and so we're trying to make a study of it. So one of the things I will tell you is, as you change this pleasure brain to a pain brain, that brain also becomes compulsive. And so how does that happen, Meryl? How does it happen? Well, that's what I'm going to show you. When we talk about drug use, and people start out like everybody else, they all start out the same. Single episode, it can happen at 12 years old, it can happen at 15 years old, it can happen at 25 years old, it can happen at 40 years old. No big deal. Can it have consequences? Yes. Anytime you take a drug, and I'm an old pharmacist, the first thing I worry about is allergic reactions. 7% of people who drink ethyl alcohol will have an allergic reaction to ethyl alcohol, just like you do with penicillin. So the thing about it is, it can have consequences. It can have that physical reaction. And most people don't know that. But if they have that reaction once, guess what? That means most people would do what? They wouldn't drink anymore. And that's what a lot of people can do. But the other part about this that's kind of interesting is that when people take drugs, they also can have emotional reactions. And one of the things that creates the most problem is when people get overly depressed, and when they get depressed, they do things kind of dumb. They want to hurt themselves, create suicidality and other things. Or, what the sheriff deals with is they get overly excited. And when people get overly excited, they do other kind of dumb things. They get themselves in lots of trouble. They can have a fight, they can have violence, they can have a wreck, they can have all kinds of things. And so you can have that even with one drink or drug. And so most people say, well, I understand I won't drink as much, I won't use as much. And that's kind of where you start. And then you also can have these other social legal issues that consider themselves into DUIs and other things. We live in a chemical culture. Half of our population doesn't drink or drug anything. Believe it or not, they don't. The other half uses 99% of all the methylphenidate in the world, 99% of all the hydrocodone in the world, and they consume about 60% of all the alcohol in the world. Our culture does that. Why? I don't know. Because we can, I guess. So that means we're going to expose these brains to some pretty heavy doses of these chemicals, and so you've got, and this is how it starts. So then we have drug abuse. Now, what drug abuse is, and the difference between drug abuse and drug use. I'm going to get this to. All right. My grandmother, God rest her soul, loved to make eggnog at Christmas. And she'd make the world famous Wiggins eggnog. She said, and she told me, I remember as a boy, she would tell me, she'd go into the kitchen and she'd have this big yellow bowl, one of them big old, bowls that they used to have, and she'd have a wooden spoon, and she would be whipping that bad boy up. And she said, this is the non-cook method, Merrill. I'll allow the alcohol to cook the eggs. Oh, yeah. And she used the real ethanol. She liked to use moonshine in her eggnog. And she was one of the ones that would use, and she never touched alcohol. She's totally teetotaler, except with her eggnog at Christmas. But when she got in that eggnog, now things started to happen. I remember the last time I was with her, she got in her eggnog and she started talking about granddaddy in ways that I don't want to know about. So we started to have that. And so that's, once in a great while, no big pattern to it, no problem. But when people start to develop a pattern of use, and that's what we see in about half of our population, they can start to have some issues. And a pattern can be once a month, can be once a week, can be once every 3 days, whatever that pattern may be. There's a way that they use it on a regular basis. Now, what happens, and as it says here, when you use it in amounts or with methods neither approved nor supervised by medical professionals, substance abuse or drug abuse is not limited to mood-altering psychiatric drugs either. If an activity performed using the objects against the rules and policies of the matter as steroids in the performance enhancement of drugs, it can also be called drug abuse. Therefore, mood-altering and psychoactive substances are not the only types of drugs abuse. You can abuse psychotropics, you can abuse antidepressants, you can abuse antipsychotics, you can abuse most anything. It doesn't have to be specific, some illicit drug on the street. But it has to be with a pattern, and it has to have some consequence that the person knows. So you start out with use, and a lot of people will use once, no big deal, and they drop off. But then you have a percentage of people, about half the people who use will move into this pattern of use. So they have a developed pattern of use. And this is the group that we got to really focus on. This is the group that we got. This is where your adolescents begin very quickly. Adolescents do not socially use, y'all. They do not socially drink. They don't socially smoke pot. They don't socially use opiates. They don't do it. There is a pattern, and when they use, they usually use with their friends. They usually use with their peers. And that's when you begin to see the changes in this brain. This is clickers. Click, 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 click. I should have brought my board. I could have drawn y'all a pretty picture, or I could have told you all my good jokes. Oh, okay. There it is. All right. So when you start with abuse, there begins to be a wanting to use the drug again in that same pattern of behavior. And that's what this prevention issue is about. Then, as a result of increasing that use, you can create a physical withdrawal. And then that can create similar drugs depending on consequences depending on the amount. All right, so here we go. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So here's Grandmama. She liked her eggnog, but she used it occasionally, outside of saying a few things about Granddaddy that nobody wanted to know. But, you know, no problem. She didn't get any trouble. And then you've got wanting. This is where you begin to change the brain chemistry as a result of having a pattern of use. Not everybody changes it to where they get into an addiction. And this is an issue called craving. And the reason I'm mentioning craving is because they've added it to the diagnostic criteria called the DSM-5. Now, craving is where people have a desire to use again even though they're in an abstinent state. And it occurs at any time, at any point that may occur in their recovery. And it always has to do with stress. Always has to do with stress. And so, liking and wanting and craving. So when you want to change and stop the use, it's right here. It's right here. So, you know, because when I get you to here, and this is the population I deal with, let me tell you some very disappointing figures. We have 900,000 addicts and alcoholics in the state of Georgia. Best we can estimate is this moment. 900,000. Less than 3% of them, will ever get to treatment. Ever get to treatment. So you got 97% hanging out there blowing the breeze. Now there's a couple of reasons why they don't get the treatment. One, nobody's there to help them intervene. Nobody understands that they truly have an addiction and recognize that. That's what your education's about. That's what y'all need to learn. Is what does it look like? What does it feel like? How do they behave? The second part about it is where do they go to treatment? Now the other problem that we've got now, and I God bless y'all and what y'all are doing, is appropriate treatment. See, in this country, we do not have public access to any treatment where we do in Europe. Europe, if you're a heroin addict, guess what? You can walk up to any clinic in any part of in the country, in France or England or the Netherlands or whatever, and just say, I want treatment. Guess what? The government pays for it. You don't have to have resources. And most people who have addiction, guess what? If it wasn't for the drug courts, the judge can tell you this, if it wasn't for the drug courts, guess what? They'd be dead on the streets or they'd be incarcerated in the jails because of their compulsivity. So one of the things that y'all really got to give some consideration to as you develop this program, prevention, high school, middle school, elementary school curriculum, and then you've got to have early intervention programs, and then you've got to have long-term treatment programs. Because y'all, even the message we'd like to know this, I got addicts out there blowing in the breeze right now. And they're going to be some of them that die tonight because there's no treatment available to them. Y'all hear me? And I mean this. If y'all want to get involved with this, you've got to go the whole 9 yards. You've got to have the prevention piece, you've got to have the intervention piece, and you definitely got to have the treatment piece. Now what you do is you create what y'all have done here, partnerships. Because when I tell you the rest of these slides, and the reason I'm hesitant to tell you these, they don't get any better, y'all. They don't get any better. The statistics don't get any better. So I'll show you some of the things. One of the things that I will tell you about this wonderful brand of yours is positive reinforcement. I'll be so excited when this is over. Not that I don't like y'all and y'all impress me, but I'm an old guy. And you know what old guys like to do at night? Y'all behave now. Just take a nap. And I'll be glad to take a nap. Get ready to take a nap. And my lovely wife, she's been gone for 10 days, been in San Francisco. She's been jet lagged. She slept all day. So when I roll into the yard about 10:30 or whenever we roll in there tonight, guess what? She's going to be rocking and rolling. Called positive reinforcement. All right, so we got positive reinforcement. Then we have negative reinforcement. And that's always, you know, it's kind of like, you know, bad things happen or negative things, it's kind of like, you like going to sleep. Y'all know when you get real tired and you want to get in your bed, y'all know how when y'all travel and you really want to be in your own bed, and you know how comfortable you get up in that. And of course, Carol, she's cold-natured, and she's got dual electric blankets on the bed. Dual, top and bottom. Buddy, she'll turn them bad boys on, and I was really against that. I was, in the beginning, I said, what the, are you crazy? But on these cold nights and cool nights, guess what? And y'all like doing that. But then what it is when you wake up, how do you feel when you wake up? Did y'all jump out of bed this morning? I'm so grateful to be alive. I didn't. I said, oh my God, I got to get up. Because you've had a good night's rest, but the thing about it is it takes energy to get out of that bed, and you have some negative reinforcement. Because our brains are working on the positive and negative side, and what we're going to do most of the time is try to stay in the middle. That's what our central nervous system is about. So, now, I'm having negative reinforcement at the moment. This is a slide that I really don't apologize for. I think it's an important slide that y'all know. Is that when you start using, and and we're talking about basic things, and so we're going to go to dinner. Ars and I are going to find us a place to go to dinner, and I don't know, depending on which route we take back to Athens, I may go by the mall, go by the Macaroni Grill. She kind of likes that idea. Or we may go to Jim and Dick's barbecue place. They ain't no telling, but I really, I'm kind of hungry. And so what the thing about it is, I'll have some excitement time by the dopamine will be released. But about the time I start eating, the brain is going to stimulate my glutamate, and I'll enjoy my meal, but guess what? It will not last very long. By the time I'm finished my meal, it's over. The pleasure's done. It's time to go do something else. And that's the way the brain works. So we see that right here. But then you say you have an action with cocaine. Well, cocaine comes along, and what it does, it stimulates this dopamine, and it goes, ooh, dog, oh, that's a real, ooh, yeah, I like that. And in the brain, with occasional use, and I'm trying to tell y'all, with occasional use, and guess what? It's going to come in here, and it's going to, dopamine's accelerator, glutamate's a brake, and it's going to start diminishing that high you get. So if you use it once in a great while, the brain is able to keep balance. But when you develop a pattern, and you start seeing it on a regular basis, then guess what? That increased concentration, instead of using one line, you're using 3 lines, and so your dopamine gets higher, and so you experience that big wow. But at the same time, you also have an increase in glutamate, because the glutamate, the brake is trying to work as hard as the accelerator. You understand what I'm saying? So you do that. But guess what happens? The brain says at some point, and we cannot project this, all of a sudden, the dopamine goes away. It shuts down that reward brain, and guess what? All they got here is the anti-reward brain. So you got to, and I appreciate my law enforcement brothers out here in the job they do. They stop somebody, and they may have to arrest them, and they incarcerate them. But I've seen many times where, and I've trained many folks down in Forsyth, Georgia, if y'all don't know where that is. They have this huge building in the middle of nowhere that they do all the training. And they have a great barracks down there, if I remember correctly, with no TVs and no nothing. It's horrible. And the guys are grinning, they know what I'm talking about. Because most of us find us a hotel somewhere to go somewhere after training, don't we? But anyway, you get down, but they'll stop somebody, and even though they try to offer them help. They try to offer them help. I mean, that's their job. They want the public to be safe, but also they want the person to be safe. I've seen that many, many, many times. But they say something to the guy about it, and what do? They get all, just move that mouth, and very resistant, not grateful at all. And so what happens is a lot of the world turns their back on addicts and alcoholics because they have this anti-reward brain process. Because all they can do is be negative. That's all they can do is be negative. There's no positive. They're trying to use, y'all, they're trying to use in order to get back to normal. Do you understand? If you deplete this brain the way that brain is made, and you deplete the dopamine out of it, and you shut that system down, then this brain, all it does is on the negative side, and the brain traditionally tries to set itself up to rewrite itself, so rewrite the ship, so to speak. And this is why, is because this glutamate creates this huge negative situation. Now, so you have cravings. And so with that negativity is in there, and you got cravings, and so you send them, and I talk to the judge. Judge, how long is your program?
2 years.
See, I told him, if you're going to send somebody to treatment, you got to do it long term. You can intervene through the judiciary system, and you can incarcerate them, but unless they have applications and accountability and long-term accountability, they don't do well. So a 24-month program is excellent. That's a great thing to have. But the thing about it is, he can come out of his 24-month program, or she can come out, and she'd be around, guess what? She'll be around some sort of cue, sensory, because addiction is a sensory environment. So they go around old playgrounds and old playmates and old playthings. Guess what? And they smell this, and they taste this, and they see this. Guess what happens? Craving, a desire to return back to that using process is activated. So we have that type of craving. And then we have the second type of craving, which is makes it even worse. We have relief craving, and what this is due to, and this is the thing that really most people don't understand unless they have very good treatment, it's based on stress. We have two types of stress. We have positive stress. Think about it, if y'all won the lotto. Huh? Y'all, and I know all of you thought about it. You know, I still think about that woman in Michigan that won that $360 million friggin' dollars. She took it right out of my hand. I took food right out of my mouth when she won that. And she won 190 million. Well, can you imagine what y'all would do with 190 million? No, yeah. You know, you could buy. I can't think about it. It makes me crazy. But the thing about it is, that's what drugs do to addicts. They create that tremendous euphoria that creates positive stress. Now, you also have negative stress, and so anything that creates pain can create craving. So that's why you have a recovery program. And that recovery program, and I talked to mine about it this morning, and I told them they weren't going to get out until they learned 5 things. And y'all wouldn't guess the 5 things I wanted them to learn, because I asked them this question. Carson was with me, and she watched me answer these questions. What are the 5 things I want them to learn in treatment? And they got all kinds of things that they learn in treatment, but what are the 5 things? Well, the first thing you don't do is don't drink and use. And the second thing is you find and you call a sponsor. The third thing is you find and you go to a meeting. The fourth thing is you work the steps. And the fifth thing is you repeat it daily. A ritual, y'all. You have to develop a recovery ritual, because you're going to have these stressors. You're going to have a brain that's sitting there ready to go. So the thing about it is it's pretty nasty. All right. So here's addiction, and this is the new definition of addiction. It's put out by the World Health Organization. It said it's a state of periodic and chronic intoxication detrimental to the individual and to society, produced by repeated consumption of a drug, natural or synthetic. Its characteristics include an overpowering desire or need, compulsion to continue taking the drug or obtain it by any means. That's what people can't understand. Their drug is more important than their children. Their drug is more important than their family, more important than their job, more important than their career. And they continue in spite of adverse consequences. And then a tendency to increase the dose. Now, I'm an old pharmacist, and I tell you that hydrocodone, y'all know what the normal hydrocodone dose is in the world? 20 milligrams a day. 5 milligrams 4 times a day. 20 milligrams. And if I gave y'all 20 milligrams a day and you had even with chronic pain, I can adjust it somewhat because I've done this enough, I mean hundreds of patients, you don't have any tolerance build up because you got a low dose. You manage the pain, you'll have a little pain left over, you'll have to do some physical therapy and some other things, but guess what? I don't run into any problems. Addict came in day before yesterday, you know how much hydrocodone he was taking? 300 milligrams a day. Now See, most of you, if I was to give y'all 300 milligrams, y'all wouldn't be in this world. But the thing about it is, not only was he taking that, but he was also functioning with that. Because that's what they do. That's what they do. Because they have a tendency to increase the dose. And then there's a psychic, a psychological, sometimes a physical dependence on the effects of drugs. This psychological, this preoccupation. And what's preoccupation, man? Let's go back in time. Let's just look back in time. Just kind of hold your breath a minute, and we'll step out of this world for a second. Think about your first love. Y'all remember y'all's first damn love? I see some of you grin. I see some of you grimps going. I see some of you want to run out of the building. And some of you are sitting next to it. Oh, isn't that sweet? Y'all remember your first love? Y'all know what love is? See, love is a biological, and at least the first love, y'all need to pay attention. I got a lot of guys in here. It's because of how they smell. It's called a pheromone. And so y'all didn't even know this. Y'all didn't know that. Y'all were love naive at the time before your first love, and y'all were probably in high school, maybe middle school. But the thing about it is, you're going from, A hall to C hall. You're going to social studies to study hall. Sally walked right by him. His name was Harry. And didn't even know Harry, but she walked right by him, minding her own business, and all she was doing was breathing. And she walked by Harry and took a whiff. And she caught his pheromone. She caught his wolf. And she's pretty focused, and all of a sudden she turned around and said, She didn't do anything about it, but she got real curious, in the study hall and tried to find out who he was. Well, she didn't find out who he was, so what'd she do tomorrow? What'd she do the next day? Well, she was going to do the same thing, but this time she was going to take a closer look. What she didn't understand is when she saw him and she slowed down, she got closer, she got inside of his pheromone zone. And when she took that second or third whiff, guess what? It's over. She was hooked. And she just couldn't, she started thinking about things she'd never been thinking about before. And she started to want to take risks, so she walks up to him the next day and she says, "Hi, my name's Sally." That's when it gets bad, because if Harry's not Pippin, that's called Pippin, by the way. If Harry's not Pippin, guess what? He gets slapped down like a dog. But for science's sake, let's say Harry had the same experience. He didn't know who Sally was, but when she walked by, he caught a wolf. And so when she came up to him, he greeted her in a very friendly way and took another wolf, and he was hooked too, and that's how they fell in love. Y'all remember that? Y'all remember that preoccupation? And y'all all know, if you've ever fallen in love, how crazy you get. You create a whole new mental illness. All right? Y'all got it? All right. And you think about that person, even though y'all may have fallen out of love, and years have passed. That's why you have to watch these high school reunions. Got to be careful about them bad boys, because that's how you can re-pip again. You go walking in, y'all know how you go to high school reunion. Y'all want to look good. Want to look real good, because it's not, you don't care about anybody else except who? Sweet thing number one. Now, see, Carol, my lovely wife, she's sweet thing number 16. I haven't told her the number, she just knows there's an order. And so we were going to high school, and I hadn't been back. And she wanted to know, she's just a curious little devil. She wanted to know sweet thing number 1, number 2, and number 3. Because I told her I'd had 3 in high school, and so she wanted to know them. So I obliged, and I showed her and introduced her to 2 and 3. I didn't introduce her to 1, because 1 was, I had to watch 1 because they're still, I'll be honest with y'all, they're still a little, Anyway, stop all this. I got half the guys going out to the parking lot now. So the thing about it is, you have that psychological or psychic connection to a human being. Addicts have that psychiatric or psychological connection to their drug of choice. And that's what we're talking about here. That's why I tell y'all, as much as I have done treatment, I've seen over 25,000 addicts and alcoholics in my career. And I think we've done some very good treatment programs, some long-term treatment programs. Treated 1,200 pharmacists, I probably treated 500 physicians, lots of folks who are very successful, and I think a lot of them are about out there. But I cannot take away that psychic, compulsive component of the disease that will be with them the rest of their lives. That's why what you were doing here in the prevention world, and hear me when I say this, if you save just one of these young brains, you have done something pretty remarkable. I don't care how you do it, but you've done something pretty remarkable. The reason I keep coming out places like this and staying out here late at night, and we've got another hour and a half drive back home and all this, is because I believe that you can make a difference. I believe that you can change things. I believe that if you have the momentum that you have now, you can make a better situation. Because y'all, what I'm telling you is, once this brain becomes this way, it doesn't go back to normal just because they stop using it. And that's the thing. It's a chronic, progressive disease that creates lots of difficulty and lots of problems. That's why the judge has 24 months on his table. And he knows this, and he's had some that's come out of his program, and some have relapsed, and he's had to reinitiate those. But the thing about it is, y'all, that's what we're trying to avoid. Now, if it was up to me, I wouldn't have to have this conversation with y'all. You would have this information and been trained in this information. You have to understand the disease state of addiction, plus the disease states of mental illness, are our #1 public health issue. #1 public health issue. Collectively, we have more deaths from all of that than all the other disease states put together. We can talk about cancer. And I'm trained as an oncologist pharmacist. I've been in the clinics with stage 3 and 4, patients, and have had to help the physician choose which medicine and how to apply that medicine and all that. And those people, it's interesting when they have a medicine that they can actually have something that may give them a few months of life, they become very grateful. But with addicts, when you give them a chance at treatment, I'm not going to ask the judge, I'm going to ask the sheriff, I'm going to ask anybody that's in the treatment industry, when you give them a chance, what is their initial reaction? They're not usually very grateful. In fact, they're very resistant, aren't they, as a rule? So the thing about it is, this is why we're here, and this is why. Because this is the deal. 50% of our population doesn't use anything. 50% does have this issue of beginning to like it. Out of that 50%, 89% develops a regular pattern of use, as I talked about. And out of that group, 11% become addicted. We have 365 million people in this country. You do the math. It's estimated I have 40+ million addicts and alcoholics currently in the streets and the homes and the schools and the businesses of our country. It is estimated that 3% of those may make it to treatment. And out of that 3%, 20% will recover. So y'all do your numbers. I'm probably as well trained as anybody in the country in doing treatment. I mean that very humbly. I've had the privilege of being with some of the best experts in the country over the last 30 years. But my best expertise cannot guarantee a recovery process. That's why, and I'm trying to reinforce this to y'all, at whatever energy that you're at, prevention is the key. Now, I will give you some great news. The great University of Georgia has pleased me in that they have exposed me to some of the best researchers in the world. As a result of that, my research is focused primarily, and y'all want to hear this, in the prevention of addictive disease. I just met with a colleague in the College of Pharmacy last Friday. He presented his research, which is NIDA funded, and really remarkable that we can actually predict relapse as a result of looking at a person's lipid profile. Now the problem he's got is he don't have enough human patients to do the chemistries on. And I told him, I got friends. And they've got friends. And I can give you plenty of people to do that. And we're talking about one of the esteemed researchers in the country that I'll have a meeting with tomorrow at lunch to see if we can do a collaboration collectively in order to address these issues. Now, what he wants to do, and this is our dream, and I didn't know this till I was listening to him talk. See, the reason I do this, y'all, is because I'm doing prevention models, been using my students' statistical models, and then I'm going in here and doing genomic models, where I take a cheek swab, and I'll find out the genetic connection between family history, and so I will look at the gene codes. There's 29 of them that I can look. That would give you an estimate of who would be addicted or who would have the probability of becoming addicted in their lifetime. And then I do a psychosocial history with that, and we combine that with the other biochemistries, which make it very interesting. And so what he told me was what I'm telling you and what y'all are wanting to do. I can bring the science to your prevention project by putting together a combined scientific, biological evaluation along with a psychosocial evaluation. And our dream is, within the next 5 years, is to have this available to every middle schooler in the country. But guess what I'm thinking? I got to have a pilot project first. And you know what I'm thinking and who I'm thinking about to do your pilot project? Is your children and your grandchildren here in Forsyth County. That's because of what you're doing. But I'm saying, us as researchers have to have patience, and we have to evaluate things to see what we can do. So what I'm trying to tell you is, as long as I've got breaths, and y'all pray for me, because I have a long, long journey I want to have, but y'all keep me in your thoughts. Because I know that's why I'm here, is because to make those things happen. I don't know why I have that burning desire. I have it about as more intense than I do my golf game. Which is, if you talk to my wife, that's a real challenge, because in fact, the reason I know how to get over here is because y'all got a golf course that I played not too long ago. You hear me? And so what I want to do to wrap this up is tell y'all, come on. Here's your diagnosis. This is all the DSM-5. I'm just going to click through these, y'all. This is all the 11 sources. And so what I'm going to try to tell you is that hello. What we're going to try to find is how to overcome these cravings. And with treatment and with intervention, I have medications that people can take that will help them over the first 12 months of recovery. The thing I've got to convince people of is kind of like we're doing with the naloxone. I've got to educate y'all how to do that. Some people know how to use it, and some people don't. But I have very good medications that now can stop and give a person in early recovery 12 months without intense craving, as long as they're associated with other treatment components. So, the good news is the cavalry's coming. The great news is Y'all have started something that I hope you do. Now, this is what I want you to do, and this is, y'all listen to me. Your curriculum needs to be from pre-K, all the way through the 12th grade. It needs to be consistent. It needs to be a nationally recognized curriculum, and it needs to be one that has been time-tested. There are several out there. They cost several dollars. But I will tell you one thing, if you can get the right curriculum in the school along with the associated curriculums that the sheriff and other resource officers are providing, guess what? You got 2 legs of the 3-leg stool in prevention. The other leg of this prevention project, and I need to say this to y'all as being involved with that, has to do with all the community, listen to me, all the community agencies, businesses, Chamber of Commerce, but one of the biggest areas that can be used is your churches. If we don't have them involved in teaching this information and other information to reinforce what goes in the schools, you've got a 2-legged stool. You need a 3-legged stool, because I'm going to tell you something. The kids that get involved with those types of processes, it'll be your church and your sports and your school and all of those things, guess what? That's a great thing. Now, one more thing, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to be quiet because I'm done. I'm tired. And I appreciate y'all's patience. Parenting. Parents, do not let your children know that you're going to stop parenting when they start getting a set of keys for a car. I find that very common, and that parents want them to be very independent. As long as they're with you and as long as they're involved with you, be involved with them. Do that. I know I'm speaking to the choir when I say this. So what I want y'all to do, curriculum, pre-K through 12. I want y'all to have community-wide prevention throughout your community. I want you to have support and get support for all of these resource officers and the law enforcement folks and the drug courts, and do all those things and understand what they are and how they work. It's just like the sheriff has tried to explain to y'all how they work and what they're about. When he comes in here with his naloxone and understand what those components and these other wonderful programs y'all got. What that means, y'all, and I'll leave you alone, you got to think about it every day. You got to do it every day. Because if you don't, the drug dealers, the cartels, and the people who are changing the laws in this country, they're making black sound white, such as the legalized marijuana approach. I'm going to tell you, the dragons are here. And they're big, and they're powerful, and they're hungry. So if y'all don't stand up and fight them, your children literally do not have a chance. I will tell you that on my end of it, I will do everything I can to bring back the research and do the things we got to do and continue to do the things that we have to do. And y'all can make sure that my commitment is to your efforts. My prayers will be with you. And everything I think about will be with you as I will consider and continue to work towards trying to get what I told you is an intervention tool that we could have in the middle schools. Thank you very much for your kindness.
Thank you so much. I want to thank you all again for coming. I want to thank our district attorney, Penny Penn, for providing our speaker tonight. I want to thank all of our deputies, our sheriff's office, for the support that you give us in our community. I want to thank all of you for coming tonight, and for our community, our school system, for all of you that care. And for our Drug Awareness Council, y'all just keep supporting and keep giving back, and all of you for all the ways that you care and give. And it takes a community effort, and I just appreciate all that. We just can't stop. We just got to keep thinking of ways that we can all work together. And mentoring is such a key part. And I told Virgilio and Sylvia that I would push mentoring because it makes such a difference in our community. And we've got our Mentor Me breakfast coming up next Tuesday, and we've got some really wonderful programs, and mentoring can make a difference in these kids' lives. And that's something we can all do in our community is mentoring. So y'all think about becoming a mentor and making a difference in kids' lives. And with that, thank you all for coming. Thank you.